commission that you sat on.
Yang do wax lu am solo nak ne duñ la mëna laaj lu aju ci commission ni nama bobu nga xamne ci nga togon.
Can you please provide any provision that exists that says that we cannot ask questions about the tax commission?
Ndax mën nga ñoo won fen fo xamne woné nañ ne waru ñoo mëna laaj dara lu aju ci commission bobu.
I didn't say you cannot ask questions. I say you cannot ask me questions. Why?
Waxuma ne mënulo laaj ay laaj waaye mëno ma laaj man ndax lutax?
Because I presided over the tax commission, one.
Ndax man ma jité won tax commission bobu ben.
And the decision of the tax commission is similar to that of a decision of a judgment of a court.
Té tamit nak li nga xamné mo nekkon dogal yi commission bobu mu melni rek dogal bu jëmé joggé ci court judge bi.
And no judge is required, is expected to explain the decisions that they have decided, they have rendered.
Té tamit judge amul kenn ko xamné ni war na ko laaj mu léral lan motax mu dogal bobu.
Mr. Why? As you said earlier, the commission is created by an act of law.
Comme kanin ko waxé won nak commission bobu dañ leen tan nak sukandiku nak ci wali loi.
And in this commission you were not a judge.
Commission bobu nak nekkulo fa won attekat.
You were a commissioner.
Da nga nekkon commissioner.
If you can provide for us any provision or any law that says we cannot ask questions on it, we will take that.
Su fekkee ne mun nga ñëwoon fenn fu ñu waxee ne waruñoo mun a laajte dara ci mbir moomu ba tey dinañ ko nangu.
One, I was a judge.
Ben man judge laa woon.
Two, the provision under section 202 of the Constitution.
Ci ñaar téeméer ak ñaar ci xati luwaay réew bi Gambia.
Subsection 3.
Ci ñetteeli xaaj bi.
Which says.
Mu wax ne.
A commissioner appointed under section 200.
Commissioner boo xam ne dañ ko tàll nag ci xatam ñaar téeméer ci loi bi.
Shall not be liable to any action or suit in respect of any matter or thing bona fide done.
Nekku nag koo xam ne ni gàddu na dara lu jëm ci wàlli lu muy lay ci lu mu def.
Committed to be done in performance of his or her function as a commissioner.
Def boo xam ne ni def na ko nag ci kaw anam gi nga xam ne mu ngi doon liggéey ci maxamaam ne commissioner la.
It therefore follows.
Ci kaw loolu nag toftal na.
If you are inquiring into the activities of any commission,
bu fekkee yaa ngi gestu ci tëddalini bépp commission.
That inquiry.
Ci gestu boobu noonu.
May lead to an action or suit in respect of the matter that was done in the commission. The provision is very clear. I am not under obligation to start explaining what happened. Because the report is there for everybody to read it. To understand the rationale behind the decisions made. The recommendations that were made. In fact, the Supreme Court of the Gambia has already decided and upheld the decision of the Tax Commission.
Supreme Court of Gambia
So that is that.
Ms.
Singhateh, I think you have misinterpreted that section of the Constitution.
Miss Singhateh fognane dal nga feñale fanna bobu du nonu.
Because I am not asking you about the findings, etc.
I
was merely asking you about people who were tasked to appear before the said commission. Because this commission is a truth-seeking commission. And is looking into rights violations. And that commission was set up to target certain lawyers, certain companies, and people that Yaya Jammeh was not happy with. Fine, it was created by law. But it targeted people. Hence why I asked you how many lawyers were called to the commission.
Can you remember or you don't remember?
I don't remember, but I know it's in the records of proceedings of the commission.
mënuma ko fàttale ko de waaye nag xam naa ne mu ngi bind ci li mu bind ci record yi commission boobu.
Do you know how many companies were called to that commission?
ndax xamoon nga ñaata compagnie lañ ooyoon pour ñu jàkkaarloo commission boobu.
It's in the records of proceedings. I don't remember at the top of my head.
mënuma ko fàttale ko ci suma bopp de waaye ma mu ngi bind ci li mu ngi ci li ñu bind.
At that time, when that commission was set up in 2011,
jamono jooju ñoo taxawal commission boobu atum 2011.
is it correct to say that Yaya Jammeh himself was doing business and operating companies?
ndax mën naa wax ne Yaya Jammeh mu ngi doon def wàlli njula te doxal mu ngi jiite woon tam ay compagnie yu mu doon doxal.
That's over 10 years ago. I do not recall.
loolu lu dem ci fukki at ci gannaaw loolu mënuma koo fàttale ko.
Well, for the record and for the commission, Yaya Jammeh was operating companies and businesses at that time.
waaye pour xamal la nag loolu mooy li xewoon Yaya Jammeh mu ngi doon doxal business amoon ay compagnie yu mu taxawal jamono boobu.
Were any of his companies called to the said tax commission?
ndax compagnie yooyu ñëpp am na kenn kuñ ci oo pour ñu ñëw teew ci kanam commission yi boobu doon saytu ni naama yi.
I think I have given you my answer. I don't recall, but I know that everything we did was recorded. It's in the records of the proceedings, and it was in the reflected in the report. So all you need to do is just go through the report, and you have the answers to all the questions you're asking.
yaakaar naa tontu naa la de mboolem luñ fàttale ku may waaye mboolem luñ doon def ñu ngi ko bind ci record yi te itamit mu fa li ngay def rek mooy dem ci record yooyu seet ko lan ko fa gis.
And the report is public document.
te itamit nag nekk na kay goo xam ne nii kayit yi ñëpp la.
Well, to refresh your memory,
waa pour fàttali la.
none of Yaya Jammeh's companies were called to attend or answer any questions during that commission.
amul benn compagnie boo xam ne bu Yaya Jammeh la boo xam ne ooyoon nañ leen pour ñu ñëw teew ci kanam commission boobu.
And just as a point of correction, you were not sitting as a judge on that commission. You were the chair commissioner of the commission.
pour leeralal la tamit nekkuloon jooj ci commission boobu da nga nekkoon nga xam ne moo jiite woon commission bi.
And for the record and for the commission, it is to be established that that commission was set up purposely to target certain individuals and companies.
pour ma buna dëgëral nag ci kanam commission bi nekk commission boobu nga xam ne dañ ko taxawaloon pour ñu def ay gëstu ci mbir ñi nga xam ne dañ luubal ci wàlli naama dañ leen taxawaloon pour tànn ci ay nit.
At this point, I want to move to another issue.
adama jàll nag ci beneen bunta.
I want to raise some questions about the declaration of the Gambia as an Islamic state.
léegi nag ma jàll ci beneen fànn mooy jamono ji nga xamee ne nag yéebaane nañ wone ne réewi Gambia réewi islam la.
Is it correct that you were the Minister of Justice at this time of the declaration?
dëgg la ne jamono boobu yaa nekkoon ministre bi saytu wàllu luwaay ak attey ci réew mi.
Yes, I was.
waaw jamono bu man la woon.
Can you tell this commission the advice you gave to the president after he made this declaration?
dañu mun a jox ban ndigal nga joxoon président bi gannaaw bu mu defee yéebaane bi ba pare.
I can tell you that I actually wrote an opinion about his declaration.
mun naa laa wax man ci suma bopp nag dingatoon naa nag lu jëm ci wàlli dogal boobu mu jëloon.
I cannot remember the substance of the opinion.
munuma fàttali ko nag baat ak baat li nga xam ne loolu laa waxoon ci xalaat boobu.
It's in the files.
waaye mu ngi ci file yi.
But in essence,
waaye nag ci ni mu yëree.
I had informed him
yëgaloon naa ko ne.
that to declare for a state to become an Islamic state,
pour nag réew nekk nag réewam islam.
there were certain procedures that we must go through.
foog si ñu am ay saawo yoo xam ne fa la ñooy jaar.
And that
Thank you,
includes a
Mr. Mate.
referendum.
We'll get to that point.
When you asked me a question, you asked me what advice did I give. I'm telling you that I don't remember, but in essence, this is what I said.
You indicated that you had written an opinion.
Yes, I did.
I want to get on that point before we move further.
Okay.
Thank you.
da nga ko bindoon wax ko sa xalaat foofu laa bëgg ñu jëm balaa ñu continuer.
We have an opinion that was from your office,
am na xalaat bu fi amoon mag mu ngi nii bàyyee ko sa office.
signed by yourself,
yow mi yaa ko sign.
dated the 8th of February 2016.
juróom ñetti fan ci weeri February 2016.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, I would like the witness to look at the document. Would it be correct to say that opinion originated from your office?
ndax mun naa wax ne loolu nga xam ne moom lañ bind nii sa office la bàyyeekoo.
Hold on, let me read it. Yes.
Is it correct that in that opinion, you were actually advising as to how the republic can be changed to an Islamic state?
Yes.
mun nañoo wax ne li nga bind foofu yaa ngi ko doon digal naka la ñoo wéccee réew mi def ko réewum islam.
And you had even gone to the extent of making comparison from 2 different jurisdictions.
def nga ko sax bay méngale ñaari béréb.
To more than 2 different jurisdictions.
You talked about Pakistan.
Pakistan.
What other countries did you mention?
A few of them, but you also have to take it into context. So since we're talking to the Commission and member of the public, if you see from the first paragraph of my letter and my opinion, if I may be allowed to read it.
You may read it.
Comme que mbolo mi la ñu wax ak commission bi dañuy seet nak jël benn xaaj boo xam ne nii ci lim bind.
I had said before that everything I do, I reduce it into writing. My opinions are always clear.
wax na lépp lu ma wax na dama koy def bind pour nag gis ne suma xalaat yëpp leer na.
In that letter I wrote, I refer to the verbal directive.
nga xam ne nag daal di woon naa ko ebal nag ci li nga xam ne nii mooy ndigal loo xam ne nii ay kàddu rek la woon.
Made on the 30th of December 2015.
defoon ko fanweeri fan ci weeri December 2015.
For this office, that is the Ministry of Justice.
pour nag si office bi ministre bi saytu wàllu loi ak àtte ci réew mi.
To conduct research on the modalities for the effective establishment and functioning of an Islamic republic.
pour nag ñu xañ ci anam yi nga xam ne mooy dëppoo ak tëddalin yi mën a sosé nag Islamic Republic di réewi islam.
The directive further directed that we seek guidance from systems such as Saudi Arabia, Mauritania, and Pakistan.
te tamit ñu dal di seet nag wéy tamit ci li nga xam ne nii moo nekk ay xalaat yu tuggoo ci réew yooyu mu tudd.
Yes, so to look at it from the context.
pour seete ko nag ci li nga xam ne noonu lañ ko bindee.
I had a meeting with him.
am naa jotaay ak moom.
Informed him about the procedure that would be involved.
wax ko nag sartay anam yi nga xam ne noonu lañ ko war a doxalee.
That for a state to become Islamic, for the country to be an Islamic republic.
pour nag réew mu ne nekk Islamic Republic.
This matter had to be brought to a referendum.
nekk na mbir moo xam ne foog ñu def ko ci référendum nag.
Thank you, Supreme Court. Let me give you context, please. That the Supreme Court had already decided
Supreme Court bi nag dal dina dogal ba pare.
that Section 1 of the Constitution, which is an entrenched clause,
ci constitution bi nga xam ne nag nekk na loo xam ne ni waruñ koo génne.
cannot be amended without the input or the approval of the people.
mënuñ koy génne mënuñ koy wecci ci tey tewen amuñ ndigal boo xam ne mu ngi jóge ko ci xalaati nit ñi.
That means that it has to go through a referendum.
foog si rek mu dem nag ci wote referendum.
It was following that advice.
di toftal nag ndigal boobu.
He still insisted that he wanted to go ahead.
ba léegi rek mu dingal ne dafa bëgg a continuer.
That's why I refer to the verbal directive.
moo tax na ma jëm nag ci li nga xam ne mooy ndigal boo xam ne ci kàddu rek la woon.
That he made on the 30th of December.
ci li mu wax nag ni ki fanweeri fan ci weeri December.
And in the opinion,
ci li nga xam ne mooy xalaatam.
If you may allow me to guide you.
Okay.
You've talked about a referendum.
Yes.
And we've also talked about that he refused to accept that advice.
Well, he insisted on going ahead with it.
If you may look at this letter, which is dated the 15th day of February 2016, with your permission, Mr. Chair.
15th, that one is after this letter. Thank you.
The said letter was addressed to you as the minister.
Yes.
Letter bi yow lañ ko bindoon dama ne jooju yaayoon minister bi.
Can you read the context of the letter for this commission?
Yes, let me read it first.
Nga ñoo jàngal.
So this letter was dated on the 15th of February. It follows the letter that I had written dated the 8th of February. And it refers to that letter. In that letter, I had advised, that's why I wanted to go into details on that letter. In that letter, I had advised that we had conducted in-depth research as per his directive at the systems of governance of 3 countries. We focused on the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Malaysia, and Islamic Republic of Mauritania. We give examples of the way those systems work. And we also highlighted the case, the situation, the legal system as it was, as it is. And we raised the issue of judicial aspect of Islam. And highlighted the fact that Malaysian judicial system is a bi-jural nature with large common law influences. Yes, and that it had more common law influence as opposed to Islamic law influence. And I elaborated more on that. And I stated that as a result of that, the foregoing, that given the Gambia's unique history, culture and social family ties, and other religious groups, a hybrid structure is proposed until all conditions necessary for an effective functioning of an Islamic state. And I said that recommendations are as follows: that if he wanted to proceed, there was going to be a short-term and long-term plan. And one of the recommendations, hold on, I'm referring.
May I lead you, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Do not read all the recommendations.
No, I'm not. I'm just reading
because
one.
It is very long.
Yes, I understand.
Yes.
So I'm just reading paragraph 1. Paragraph 1 talks about the formal name. The recommendation was maintain the formal name of Republic of the Gambia on official legal documents.
The Republic of the Gambia.
Since a change of name without fulfillment of all constitutional requirements will resort to adverse legal complications. I also stated that it is particularly relevant in agreements and contracts which have great benefits to the government
yoo xam ne nag am na njëriñ bu yaatu nag ci wàlli nguur gi.
but could be challenged in court and declared null and void.
waaye nag mën nañ koo dingat ci court bi te bu boobaa nag dañ koy dàq daal ne dara amatut fa.
due to the non-fulfillment of all legal and constitutional requirements necessary.
gannaaw boo xam ne nag ñàkk a motal nag lépp loo xam ne ni aajo nañ ko ci loi ak taw ci doxalin bi ni mu waree.
I also stated that a referendum to take into consideration popular opinion on the proposal of Gambia becoming an Islamic state.
te tamit nag ràññee tamit ne lu jëm ci wàlli référendum di wote diggante waaw ak déet ànd ngeen ci wala ànduñ ci.
as well as the fulfillment of constitutional requirements for amendment of an entrenched clause.
ki tamit nag li nga xam ne nii mooy ci loi pour nag daal di di soppali ci buntu boo xam ne nii am kenn waru ko wecci.
I also suggested that we continue to promote equality for all persons, all faith, and all gender before the law.
ci kaw loolu nag ci lañ war di continuer nag di siiwal emale goo xam ne da nekk ci diggante diine yi diggante góor ak jigéen ak tamit ci leneen yu ci dëpp.
So there are many proposals and recommendations, but this is just some of it.
am na nag ràññeef yu bëri yoo xam ne nii bind nañ ko waaye nag yii rek mooy yenn ci ñoom.
So to go to the letter that was just handed over to me dated the 15th of February.
nag ñu dem nag ci lettre bi nga xam ne moom lañ ma bind fukki fan ak juróom ci weeri février.
From the office of the Secretary General.
jógee ko ci office ci Secretary General bi.
The Secretary General signed the letter.
Secretary General bi signé lettre boobu.
And he was conveying an executive directive.
te moom nag mu ngi doon àggale ak ndogal digal boo xam ne ni mu ngi jógee ko ci président bi.
To the effect that.
ci anam bu ne.
that the Gambia will continue to be called Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
Gambia dañ koy continue di ko ooyee Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
And that the republic will adhere to the status of a truly Islamic and not a pseudo-Islamic Christian state.
te tamit nag dana nekk nag loo xam ne dafa wane ne Islamic Republic la waaye du republic boo xam ne diggante Islam ak Christianity.
And the republic would have all the attributes of an Islamic state within 5 years.
te tamit nag dana am lépp loo xam ne ni aajo na ko di Islamic Republic si diirab juróomi at.
He also directed that therefore
ci la bind tamit day wax joxe ndigal ne kon
to task my office
sas nag suma office
to work on the constitution
ñu liggéey nag ci constitution luwaay réew mi
and take note that there will be no referendum on this issue.
te tamit ñu xam nag ne amul benn wote diggante déet ak waaw boo xam ne dañ ko def si mbir mi.
That the task force should initiate action
ne task force boobu noonu nag foog si la ñu jël ay jéego
to establish institutions of Islamic State with Sharia laws
foog si ñu jaareel institution léew islamique boo xam ne ni danañ am ay sharia loi ay sharia
analogous to the functioning of Islamic State of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, and Mauritania.
doxalin bi nga xam ne mu ngi nekk islamique bu réewi arab yooyu mu tudd noonu.
That the Sharia judicial system should be fully fledged by 30 December 2021. That in the process of requisite institutions should be set up trainees identified for formal training in Sharia jurisprudence and Sharia courts. That is it. That is all.
And that letter was addressed to yourself?
Yes,
it was addressed to my office.
Can you read the addressee in that letter?
Attorney General, Minister of Justice.
May I have the letter, please? The letter was personally addressed to you.
If it was personally addressed to me, it would have been Mama Fatima Singhateh. It was addressed to my office as Attorney General Counsel.
The letter was addressed the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, then it said Ministry of Justice. So it was addressed to you as you held that position at that particular time.
Minister wi nga xamne mo saytu walu loi ak atay ci office minister bi saytu bi loi ak até bon té yow ya fa nekkon.
Can you tell this commission the actions you took after you received the directive dated the 15th of February 2016?
nga mëna wax commission bi nak lan nga def gannaaw bo jotee letter bi nga xamné ñu ko bindoon fukki fan ak juroom ci
I believe there was a task force
yaakaar naa amoon na genn kuréel goo xam ne ni task force
chaired by the Secretary General
jiite ko nag di Secretary General bi
consisting of some personalities.
nga xam ne ni boo ko na ci nag di ay yenn nit.
May I stop you there?
Okay.
I believe you replied to the directive on a letter dated the 14th March 2016. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I would like the witness to see this letter.
Thank you.
That letter is a reply to the directive you received.
Letter bobu dan ko tontu ci ndigal yi nga xamne mom nga jotoon.
And in the same letter you're actually referring to the opinion you had sent initially.
Te ba tay ci letter bi de yang ci do wax mbiri yow li won sa gis-gis ci letter bang leen jëkkoon a yónnee.
Is it correct that in this letter you indicated that a task force should be set up?
Actually, the task force was already instructed to be set up in that letter, the previous letter of the 15th of February. And in this letter, I refer to the directive in said letter, referring to the task force to initiate action.
Task force di jambur yoñu santon nañ jël ay jéego.
So it is therefore correct that in this letter you created the task force.
I did not create the task force. I sent recommendations of names for the task force.
Can you read the recommendations you sent for the task force?
Yes. I said, I hereby forward the following names for persons for the attention of His Excellencies to constitute a task force.
His Excellency nak pour task force comme pension jambour yoy nga xamné ñom lañ wax ni ñu tan.
And the following people were proposed.
Ñi nak ñom lañ tudon.
Alhaji Ousmane Dia.
Alhaji Ousmane Dia.
Kadi Omar Seka.
Kadi Omar Seka.
Alhaji Essa Dabo.
Alhaji Essa Dabo.
Alhaji Mbaye Saho.
Alhaji Mbaye Saho.
Dr. Omar Dia.
Dr. Omar Dia.
Mrs. Marie Sen.
Mrs. Marie Sen.
Dr. Abubakar Senghor.
Dr. Abubakar Senghor.
Mr. Lamin Kamara.
Mr. Lamin Kamara.
Mr. Abdoulaye Ba.
Mr. Abdoulaye Ba.
Those were the names that were recommended.
Was the task force set up?
Yes, the task force was set up.
And the aim of the task force was to now find a way of implementing the Islamic State of the Gambia.
I think it was more like looking at the feasibility of the Islamic State.
Can you repeat, please? Sorry.
I think it was on the feasibility of establishing an Islamic State.
Which goes to the same thing as they were set up to find a way that they could implement this directive that had stated that Gambia should change to an Islamic state.
If you say so.
Yes, I do. I believe you have your constitution with you.
Yes, I do.
May you open part 3, where it says legislative and other powers of the National Assembly.
What section?
100.
Yes.
You will see that on the section 1, 101.
Section 101.
It says the legislative power of the Gambia shall be exercised by bills passed by the National Assembly and assented to by the president. Is that correct?
Yes.
Which means in interpretation that even the president cannot make laws. It is only the National Assembly that makes laws.
That's very clear.
Thank you. At this point, I would like you to read subsection 2 of section 100.
That
the National Assembly shall not pass a bill to establish a one-party state, establish a
mais néegi député duñ agale nak ben taxawal ben loi pour nak gis ne ben parti state dana am
establish a religion as a state religion
te ben diine nak dal moy nek diine réew mi
and alter the decision or judgment of a court in any proceedings.
ak tamit génn nak li nga xamné moy dogali court bo xamné ni muy doxé.
Thank you, Ms. Singhateh.
You're welcome.
I think section 2B of the Constitution is stated clearly.
Section 2B,
no ambiguity. It says the National Assembly shall not pass. Shall not pass a bill to establish any religion as a state religion. Isn't that the advice that should have been given to the president when he declared a state to be Islamic? That there was no need to write opinions actually comparing other jurisdictions, etc., on Islamic implementations.
And what makes you think I did not advise that?
Well, you have told the commission that you write very well.
Yes,
it was not in your opinion.
It was not. I refer to a verbal directive after a discussion I had with His Excellency.
Everything you said in that verbal directive was actually stated mainly in the letter that you read, which gave you the directive to go ahead and implement the Islamic State.
I gave the advice verbally, and he responded and gave a verbal directive, and I implemented and reduced that verbal directive into writing, and still went ahead with the process of implementation. And the process of implementation includes the issue of a referendum. So no matter however you take it, no matter however you look at it, it would still become an issue for the decision for the people of the Gambia. So whatever you look at it, however you look at it, a referendum would still be required. And then the people would decide on what they want. And that would have been the end of it.
Actually, Mr.
Council, before you continue with that one, Commissioner Jones wanted to raise a point of order. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Council, it will be very helpful to the Commission if Ms. Singhateh can read the response to the letter, the executive directive received on 15th of February, because we are missing some content from her response. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll hand back the letter to her to be read.
She's to read the entire letter.
Thank you. Would you like me to read the whole letter?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Reference is invited to reference number. That was the letter I had sent to the office of the President.
Office of the President.
On the above. And hereby convey executive directive. To the effect that the Gambia will be called an Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
And the Republic will adhere to the status of truly Islamic and not a pseudo-Islamic Christian
te
state.
tamit nag bu boobaa nag dana nekk na réew moo xam ne nii dafay doxee ni islamic réew waaye du na boo xam ne nii islam ak christian réew.
That the Republic will have all the attributes of an Islamic state within 5 years.
te tamit nag dana am lépp loo xam ne nii lamboo na ko nag di islamic state si diirab juróomi at.
The directive further tasks you
kon nag ndigal bi dal dina la jox ndigal.
to work on the Constitution.
pour nag ñu liggéey si constitution di loi république bi.
Sorry, Ms. Singhateh, I'll interject. I meant the response to the letter that was dated on the 15th, not the letter that came from the SG. Your response to the letter, whereby you gave recommendations. And could you please cite the date as well, please?
Yes, it says the 14th of March.
dina fukki fan ak ñeenti si weeri maaj la.
And I indicated
te tamit wane naa fa.
that I refer to the letter dated the 15th of February
ne lettre bi nga xam ne ñu ngi ko bind fukki fan ak juróom ci weeri février.
with reference number.
Reference number bi.
The reference is indicated.
wane nañ ko fa.
Which was a response to my letter of the 8th of February.
nga xam ne nii mooy tontu suma lettre bi ñu bindoon fukki fan ak juróom-ñetti fan ci weeri février.
The directive given in said letter
ci ndigal bi nga xam ne moom lañ bind ci lettre boobu.
was inter alia.
moom nag ca njëlbeen.
In quotes.
comme ni nga xam ne noonu lañ ko tànnee loolu lañ ci seppee.
A task force to initiate action.
ne nag am na kuréel goo xam ne nag mu jël ay jéego.
To establish the institutions.
pour nag mu dal di taxawal nag buntu boo xam ne nii.
Of an Islamic state with Sharia laws.
yu jëppoog Islamic state ànd ak luwaay sare.
Analogous to the functioning of Islamic State of Saudi Arabia.
loo xam ne dina mel ni Islamic state bu Saudi Arabia.
Iran, Pakistan, and Mauritania.
Iran, Pakistan, ak Mauritania.
End of quote.
ñu dal di jeexal nag nañ ko seppee.
And I continued.
ma continuer.
In this regard,
ci kaw bunta boobu nag.
I forward the following names for person.
maa ngi ebal nag ñi turi ni ñi nga xam ne moom leen a lim si nii.
For His Excellency to select.
pour nag His Excellency mu tànn.
To constitute the task force for work to commence.
pour continuer nag task force boobu di woy pencam jàmbur yooyu nag pour ñu continuer commencer.
The executive directive above.
ci ndigal li nga xam ne nii mu ngi jóge ko ci président bi ci fii ni ñu ko feeñalee ci kaw.
And the following persons were proposed.
nit ñi muy tudd si nii nag ñoom lañ ci xalaatoon.
Would you like me to go through the names, the list?
Yes, please, you may continue.
Dr. Alaji Usman Jah. I have number 1, Alaji Usman Jah.
No, continue.
Oma continue.
Wow.
Kadi Omar Seka, Alaji Esa Dabo, Alaji Mbai Saho, Dr. Omar Jah, Mrs. Marisen, Dr. Abubakar Senghor, Mr. Lamin Kamara, Mr. Abdoulaye Ba.
tur yooyu mu tudd nag mooy ñi nga xam ne nii ñoom lañ xalaatoon pour ñu nekk pencum jàmbur yooyu nga xam ne nii ñooy task force muy waroon na doxal mbir mi.
Yeah.
Is that the end of your response?
Yes. The rest is the proposal that in order to be more productive, the task force should be kept small.
Please just read to the end of the letter.
Yeah.
That's it. I hand it over back to the chairman. It's just the
Okay.
content of the letter.
Okay, it's proposed that in order to be more productive, the task force be kept small.
nag seen comité pencam woytaan ñoom dañ war naa nekk lu néew.
His Excellency is hereby requested to choose 4 or 5 persons from the persons listed above.
tamit président bi ñeent ba juróomi rek lay tànn nag ci ñooñu nga xam ne ñoom lañ doon tudd sànq ci gannaaw.
If the need arises, assistance could be sought from other persons for specific purposes.
bu fekkee nag ne aajoo nañ ko nag danañ war a ndimbal ci ñeneen.
It is further proposed that the office of the president could chair this task force.
te tamit nag xalaat nañu tamit ne ñii di penc jàmbur yooyu noonu nag office of the president ñoom ñooy leen ay jiite.
To ensure transparency.
pour gis ne njub.
And expeditious compliance with timelines.
ak tamit nag mu gaaw ànd ak li nga xam ne loolu lañ natt si waxtu yu war a sotti.
And the Ministry of Justice will coordinate the affairs of the task force.
te ministre bi saytu wàllu loi ak àtte si réew mi danañ taxaw nag li nga xam ne mooy doxalin ni comité woy tànneef yooyu.
Should His Excellency have any other person in mind,
bu fekkee nag ne président bi am na keneen koo xam ne ni xalaat na ko ci.
they could also be added to the list above.
Mun nañ ko boole nag ci limi ñi nga xam ne ñoom lañ tudd ci gannaaw ci kaw.
The foregoing is hereby submitted for executive approval.
Ci lii nag ñu dal dinañ ko àggale nag pour ñu wéral ko.
Or for the directive.
Wala tamit ci yeneen i ndigal.
That is it.
Pour la lettre bi am.
Thank you. I hand it back over to you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Council, can you pass the letter for the commissioners to see, please?
Yes. Mr. Usher, can you take the letter round? We shall tender these documents
Yes, I know.
at the ending of the
but
proceedings.
It might be helpful if we see the documents as well.
Yes.
Before tendering, otherwise the commissioners wouldn't have seen. Thank you very much. You may proceed, Council, please.
Thank you. Ms. Singhateh,
Yes.
looking at the provision in the Constitution,
Yes.
seetee ni nga xam noonu lañ ko waree ci téere luwaa réew mi.
which has clearly stated that the National Assembly cannot pass any bill
nga xam ne leeral nañ fa nañ ne gi député yi de mënuñoo jàllale benn luwaa
to change this country into any other sort of state,
pour wecci réew mi mu nekk ci beneen façon ni réew.
in particular when it comes to religion.
surtout nag mu ñëw nag ci mbiri diina.
This advice should have been made clear in writing to the President,
lii da nga ko waroon a binda mu leer nga digal ko président.
since you're very good with writing and everything.
comme que yow nag ku mun a binda nga.
This action put us in chaos, as the Christians got confused.
lii nag indi woon na jaxasoo ndaxte ñi nga xam ne ñoo di christian yi ñoom jaaxle woon nañ.
Even us Muslims, especially legal practitioners, got confused
ñun jullit yi sax surtout ñi nga xam ne ñoo nekk ci wàlli luwaa sax jaxasoo woon nañ.
because we were worried and did not know what sort of state we would be in
ndaxte jaaxle woon nañ xamuñ ban façon ngi réew la ñoo nekk.
and what laws would be governing us.
ak ban luwaa moo ñoo jiital.
The directive should not have been followed to actually recommend people to start a task force.
waruñ woon a joxe ndigal sax pour ñu tànn ay nit ñoo xam ne ñooy bokk ci ay jàmbur yuy seet naka la ñoo defee loolu.
Would you like me to respond?
Ndax bëgg nga ma tontu.
If you want to.
Yes. I know that there are other correspondences relating to this subject matter.
xam naa ne am na yeneen bindante yoo xam ne mu ngi aju woon ci mbir mi.
And from those correspondences, you will see even the task force when it was set up, the members of the task force were quite hesitant because they knew that this was something that cannot happen immediately. So what they were talking about is trying to see how to convince the president to maintain the status quo and walk towards a future. There was a recommendation of time frame, I don't recall, but it's in the letter.
Mr. Singhateh, it was not the responsibility of the task force to convince the president. It was your responsibility as the advisor to advise him according to the law, especially the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
I hear you, Council, but what the Council you should know, you should be aware of, and what this Commission needs to be aware of, and what the members of the public listening in need to be aware of.
Council, yow li nga wara xam ak kilifa yi nga xam ne ñoo sekk commission bi li ñu wara xam ak ñi ñuy déglu li ñu wara xam.
That because even though I am the principal legal advisor,
naam sax ndax man maa nekkoon principal legal advisor bi di kii yedd nag ci nguur gi.
And yes, I'm supposed to advise on the law.
Te nag waaw dama ko war a yedd nag lu jëm ci wàllu loi bi.
But the president had other advisors,
mais waaye na président bi am na ñeneen ñoo xam ne ñoo koy yedd de.
including religious advisors.
bokk na ci nag ñi nga xam ne ñoo koy yedd ci wàlli diine.
So if my advice,
bu fekkee nag ne suma yedd li ma ko war a yedd.
as a lawyer,
ne lawyer la.
is in conflict with a religious advisor,
féewaloo na ak li nga ki nga xam ne moo koy yedd na ci wàlli diine.
knowing that this is what he wants,
pour xam nag ne lii la bëgg.
there's no way that he would accept my advice.
kon nag amul benn anam boo xam ne ni dana dégg nag li ma koy wax.
But my advice has always been there.
waaye nag li ma ko daan yedd waxtu wu ne mu nga fa rek.
And it was clear.
tey tamit leeroon na.
So if based on his religious advisor,
bu fekkee nag ni sukkandikoon nag ci ki nga xam ne ni moo ko doon di yedd ci wàlli diine.
still wanted to proceed with his proclamation,
ba léegi mu bugg a continuer ak li nga xam ne ni moo nekk yéebaaneem.
then that was up to him.
kon nag loolu dafa desoon ci moom rek.
He was the elected official.
moom nag moo nekkoon ki nga xam ne moom lañ tànnoon ci di kilifa.
He was the one voted into office by the people.
moom la nit ñi tànnoon mu dal di ko jiital ci réew mi.
So the people in the end would have to decide.
kon nag nit ñi mujjee gi ñoom dañuy war a ñoom ñooy dogal.
Ms. Singhateh,
That's it.
the religious leaders cannot advise the president on the constitution.
njiiti diina yi day mënuñoo digal président bi lu aju ci wàlli lu waa réew mi.
Again, that was your role.
benn tey de loolu sa taxawaay la woon.
And the opinion that has been seen before this commission did not table that aspect of the constitution.
sa xalaat bi nga xam ne moom lañ feeñal fii ci kanam commission bi day feeñal loo ca fànn boobu noonu.
Instead, it continued to give him the courage that he could change this country into an Islamic state.
deful loolu de waaye continuer na di ko won ne daal moom mun naa am doole pour wecci réew mi def ko réewum islam.
And stated ways, and even compared with other jurisdictions.
toog sax ba di ko méngale ak yeneeni réew.
We cannot buy that.
loolu na mënuñ koo nangu.
That he took advice from religious leaders.
ne daf dee jël ndigal bàyyee ko ci njiiti diina.
If he was not taking your advice,
fekkoon ne jëlut yow liñ ko digal.
then it means your position was vacant.
bon dafa mel ni yow sa liggéey sa place bi amul njëriñ.
You were just there.
danga fa nekk rek.
That's your opinion.
loolu mooy sa xalaat rek.
Well, that's what you stated, that he was not taking, if he does not take your advice, you stated it.
waaye loolu nga wax de ne jëlut sa ndigal.
What use does it make? If you advise he does something different, if it was someone else, they might even resign, because then they're no longer fulfilling the position that they're sitting in.
lan mooy njëriñ li nga di ko nga nekk ko koy digal ba pare soo ko digalee du ko jàppa su doon keneen la sax dafa bàyyi liggéey bi.
I was actually carrying on my responsibility issuing advice. The responsibility for accepting the advice does not rest upon me.
maa ngi doon def li ma war ne man dama ko waroon a yedd waaye nag pour mu nangu yedd li ma ko doon yedd loolu aju ci sumay mbagg de.
That one is not
Singhateh, in
within
this
my
instant,
purview.
you did not advise the president accordingly as stated in the constitution.
ci jamono jooju ne liñ laa wax mooy digaluloo woon président bi ci ni nga xam ne noonu la ko luwaa réew mi tëralee.
That's your opinion.
loolu mooy sa xalaat.
And we will leave it to the commission to decide on the issues before them.
ñu bàyyee ko nag ci loxo commission bi bon ñoom ñu àtte.
At this point, I would like to move to the issue about the political persons that were arrested and detained in April of 2016.
léegi nag ñu ñëw ci ñi nga xam ne ay niti politique leen ñu jàppaleen teg leen benn béréb ci weeru April atum 2016.
We have evidence that several people were arrested and detained in April.
am nañ fi firnde boo xam ne day am nañu ci bari ñoo xam ne jàpp nañ leen teg leen benn béréb ci weeru April
2016.
atum 2016.
And all the offenses they were charged with were bailable.
lépp loo xam ne tuumaal nañ leen ko rek mënoon nañ leen a bail.
But your office denied them bail.
waaye sa office bi nag dañ leen tere pour ñu leen a jox bail.
Can you tell the commission why this was the situation?
mën ngaa wax commission bi lu waraloon loolu.
Can you be specific as to the people that were arrested? I don't know what you're talking about.
Fatoumata Jawara, Njogonjai, etc. Sure, those two names I've named will make you remember.
Fatoumata Jawara Nogoy Njai ñaari tur yu rep mala ko waxe di nga fatale ko.
Well, you know that bail is granted by the court, not the AG's chambers.
Waaw ndax xam nga ne bail court bi ñoo koy joxe waaye du AG's chamber bi.
You also know that arrest and detention is done by the police and not the AG's chambers.
Te tamit xam nga ne jàpp ak technique benn place ñi koy def mooy police te nekkul AG's chamber.
So I'm surprised that you asked me that question.
Te kon jaaxal na ma lool pour fekkee nga laaj ma koy laajte yooyu.
As the advisor to the people
Comme yow yaay digal nit ñi
and responsible
te yow sa warugal la
for the administration of justice,
pour doxal li nga xam ne moo di digg
when these atrocities came
bu xew-xew yu mel ni amee
to your attention,
te yow nga yëg ko
that women in particular
ne jigéen surtout
were being arrested,
ñu ngi leen jàppa
were being beaten,
ñu ngi leen dóor
were being detained
ñu ngi leen taaj benn béréb
over 72 hours,
lu weesu ñetti fan
you should have taken action.
waroon nga cee def dara de
How do you know I knew that? At the time.
To that.
How do you know I knew that at the time?
The lawyers
mu ne ko lawyer yi
who were defending
ñi nga xam ne ñoo taxawaloon
these women
jigéen yi
would always want to make an application for bail.
saa yu nekk dañoo bëgg a bind pour ñu bail leen
And the DPP then
jamono booba nag ka nekkoon DPP
would say to them his hands are tied and he would have to talk to the Attorney General before he can make any decisions.
ne moom day loxoom yi dafa tënku foog mu wax ak Attorney General balaa moo def benn dogal
That is how I know it was.
noonu la
That is news to me. That is news to me.
Loolu de xibaar la ci man.
Because I have never gone to court to actually argue a bail application.
Ndax mosuma dem ci benn court pour daggante na lu aju ci wàllu bail.
So for DPP to say that he was waiting on instructions from the Attorney General,
kon bu fekkee ni DPP wax na ne mu ngi xaar ndigal lu jóge ko ci Attorney General bi.
when he had the discretion to decide,
pour fekkee te fekk am na dogal pour dogal.
I'm surprised.
Kon nag jaaxal na ma.
We know during that time the DPP did not have a discretion.
amoon nañ ne jamono boobu de DPP bi amutoon dogal
That everything that was being done in the country, in the judiciary, in the courts,
ne lépp lu ñoo def ci réew mi ci attekaay bi
was directed by Yaya Jammeh.
ne yëpp de Yaya Jammeh moo ko doon dogal
And the DPP would obviously have to get instructions from you as you receive the directions from Yaya Jammeh.
DPP tamit ndigal ci yow la ko war a jëlee comme yow ni ngaa jëlee ndigal rek ci Yaya Jammeh
And the directives.
ak ni ñoo dogal
I can assure you that that was not the case in this instance.
Okay. I'll leave that to the Commission to decide.
Please do.
On the issue further,
ma bàyyee loolu commission bi nag ñoom ñu àtte
it was all over the news, all over the world,
mu ngi woon ci àddina si yëpp xibaar yëpp
and it was heard by everybody
te ku nekk déggoon na ko
that these women in particular
ne jigéen ñi surtout
were arrested,
dañ leen jàppa
were beaten,
dóor leen
were kept in detention
ñu taaj leen benn béréb
when the charges levied against them
nga xam ne li nga xam ne moom lañ leen tuumaal biñ leen teg
were bailable.
mënoon nañ leen ci biir
So you ought to have known,
waroon nga koo mun a
and you ought to have done the necessary.
waroon ngaa def nag li nga xam ne moo ci war
As the Attorney General yourself, you're even allowed to appear before the courts based on the Constitution.
yow mi nga xam ne sax yaa ministre bi jiite wàlli atte ak luwaay mënoon ngaa teew ci court bi sax suñu sukkandikoo ci luwaay
You yourself could have appeared and told the court, we are not opposing bail in these matters.
mënoon ngaa dem ci court bi de nga ne leen ñu ndey bañuñ pour ñu bail ñi
Being a woman, being an activist, being someone who has always handled women issues.
ngay jigéen ngay nit koo xam ne jamono ju ci nekk dang dee taxaw pour xeexal jigéen
I can assure you I did not know.
mën naa la gaaral ne xaw ma woon ko.
We will leave that issue for the Commission to decide.
boobu itam
Very
nañ ko
well.
bàyyil commission bi
We also have information
am nañ beneen digal xibaar tamit
that when Fatou Camara
ne bi Fatou Camara
was arrested,
biñ ko jàppee
you were given directives
dañ la joxoon digal ne
by the President, then Yaya Jammeh,
te ndigal loolu day président Yaya Jammeh moo la ko joxoon
to ensure that she will be charged with an offense.
pour nga gis ne tuumaal nañ ko ne dafa am dara lum def
I can assure you that's definitely not true. And I say so because an opinion was written on that case and it went through the usual process that it usually goes through. The person who wrote the opinion is alive and well, and he recommended for the discharge of the case. DPP approved it. It came upstairs, we approved it. So that one I can assure you most definitely is not true. That assertion is most definitely false.
That assertion is true because you even had a meeting with officials from the NIA headquarters about how you could prosecute Fatou Camara.
That is false. That is most definitely false. That is most definitely false. And this big forum being a truth commission, you should base your allegations on truth and not on hearsay. That I can assure you 100% is false. I never met any NIA. I never discussed this case. The only person I discussed this case with was the DPP when he suggested his opinion and I approved. So that one is completely and utterly false and ridiculous. I would emphatically deny it 100%, 150%.
We will allow the commission to decide on
the commission can decide.
However, you were aware that she was detained at mile 2.
I was not aware.
At NIA.
I was not aware. I was not aware. This incident happened in October. I assumed office in August. The only time I knew about it was when I saw the case file. And even I myself accepted that yes, there was no case against her. Every allegation that was made against her was just relating to her personal decisions and had nothing to do with law. That one I can assure you 100%.
Are you telling this commission that you were not in office at the time of Fatou Camara's detention?
I was in office. I was telling you, I just assumed office. I assumed office in August. This incident happened in October. So I was telling you that I was familiar with the case, I saw it, but I know for a fact that I did not meet with NIA, and I know for a fact that the opinion that was written by counsel for the state in the criminal division was approved by me, approved by DPP and endorsed by me for the case to be discharged. That one I can tell you for free.
Ms. Singhateh, for clarification, were you the AG at the time?
I was. I'm telling you, it was
Can you allow me to finish my questions and don't talk over me?
Go ahead.
Yes. To clarify, were you the minister at the time Fatou Camara was arrested and detained?
I believe I was.
You were the minister. And further, you were aware that she was detained at NIA.
No, I was not. It was until I received the case file.
And she was detained for 25 days.
Again,
without
I
trial?
do not know.
Without trial? Without access to a lawyer? And without access to her family? And you were aware, or you ought to have been aware, as the minister.
I could not have been aware because I was not the person detaining her. It wasn't my ministry that detained her. I could not have aware because I was not the one who charged her or arrested her. I could not have been aware. The only time I became aware was when the file was brought to my desk to endorse the discharge of the suspect.
Ms.
Singhateh, this matter was all over the media. And I know you listen to the media. Further to that, the file got to your office while she was still in detention. So it cannot be that your office or yourself did not know that she was in detention at Baba Dinka for 25 days unlawfully. In any event, if your office was even waiting further on investigations, etc. She should have been released on bail pending investigation. Because as per the Constitution, you cannot hold a person more than 72 hours without a charge.
That's your testimony.
And even though You were not the officer or the institution in charge of arrest and detention.
Dégala sax de yow nekkulo won ki nga xamne wala béréb bi nga xamne yena waron saytu ni nga xamne non lañ ko jappé ak niñ ko tégué ben béréb.
You were fully aware of arrests that were going on rampantly in this jurisdiction.
Waye téréwut xamone nga jappé nga xamne ñu ko doon nekk di japp nit ñi rek ci biir réew mi.
We all knew.
Ñep xam nañ ko.
But everybody was afraid to tell Yaya Jammeh the truth.
Waye ñep ragalon nak pour wax Yaya.
Because of that, people's rights were violated in this jurisdiction.
Ragal gogu nak mo tax be yelle fi nit yeb ñu yàq ko ci réew mi fi.
At this point, I shall be moving to the next issue,
Ma jall ci benen fann.
which is your role
Nga xamne sa taxaway la
and the activities
ak yëngu yi
that you held
nga
during
xamne mom nga def jamono joju
the impasse
ci jamono ji nga xamé ne président bi mu ngi bañon ne du wacc
that this country suffered.
coono gi nga xamne mom la ci réew mi dajoon.
Can you tell this commission the position you were holding during the impasse?
Wax ñu nak ban place nga yoré won jamono bobu.
I was the Minister of Justice.
maa nekkoon ministre bi saytu wàlli loi ak atte ci réew mi.
And it is correct that you attended a meeting where the president declared that he was not accepting the results.
No,
Ndax
I
dëgg la
wasn't.
ne teewe woon nga meeting bi jamono ji président bi wax ne nanguwul result yi ci
No, I
élection.
didn't.
déedéet teewuma woon ci meeting boobu.
During the impasse, did you attend any meeting with the president?
Am na benn meeting boo xam ne defoon nga ko ak président bi jamono jooju mu bañee wàcca.
What is the impasse?
lan mooy impasse bi féewlu politique boobu.
The period where Yaya Jammeh refused to leave this jurisdiction after he legally lost the elections.
Moolu mooy jamono ji Yaya Jammeh bañee génn réew mi gannaaw bu mu daanoo ci élection bi.
Perhaps we need to clarify a few things.
yaakaar naa foog ñu leeral yenn mbir fii.
That the mandate of the president expired after the 17th of January 2017.
ne mandat yi président bi dana jeex fukki fan ak juróom-ñaar ci weeri.
Mr. Singhateh, I know the
No,
law.
please,
I know the law just as you do.
May I answer
Excuse
the
me.
question?
The point is, the president made a declaration that he is not accepting the results of the election and that he is not leaving the jurisdiction. Isn't that correct?
Am naa luwaa de président bi dafa ne moom nanguwut élection yi ñi nga xam ne noonu la tëree te bon du génn réew mi.
You asked
Isn't
the
that
question.
correct?
You cannot ask me to answer a question the way you want me to answer. I would answer it the
Ms.
way
Singhateh,
I can answer it.
This question is just a yes or a no.
There's no such thing as a yes or no answer.
There is.
No, there isn't.
Okay, so I am putting it to you that the president did refuse the election results and refused to leave the jurisdiction.
I am saying the president, yes, lost the election,
maa laa wax ne la président bi nag daanu woon na ci wote bi de.
and yes, conceded to the election loss,
te nangu woon bu njëkk ci wote daanu boobu.
and then changed his mind as to the loss of election.
On a Friday, as usual.
mujjee gi mu
Always
wecciwaat
makes his
xalaatam.
announcements on Friday.
Please allow me to answer.
Go
And
ahead.
this was triggered by the declaration by IEC of two conflicting election results.
te lii nag li ko waraloon moo nekk ne IEC ñoom it seen déclaration boo xam ne def nañ ko ci ñaari bunt wote boo xam ne ni féewaloo nañ ci mbiri compte.
This resulted to the president declaring that he no longer accepts the results.
lii nag taxoon na ba président bi mujjee gi mu ne daal moom nangootut results yi.
And it's
at this
normal
stage-
for an election to
And
be
at this
contested.
stage, what did you advise the president as the advisor?
jamono boobu
Can you
la ko
listen?
digal.
Can you listen? At least may I be allowed to speak? You asked an open-ended question. Let me answer. His refusal to accept the election result is his right.
ni mu bañee nag ne daal du nangu nag wote bi li ci jóge ko di election results yi loolu yelleefam la.
What we all know
li ñu xam ñëpp de mooy.
is once his mandate expired,
mooy gannaaw boo xamee mandat am bi jeex na.
he would have to step down.
dafa war a wàcc.
And his mandate would have expired after the 17th of January.
te tamit mandat am dafa war a jeex gannaaw fukki fan ak juróom-ñaar ci weeri January.
And he refused or reversed his decision to concede on the 9th of December.
te itamit dafa bañoon nag li nga xam ne nii mooy ne daanu na juróom-ñeenti fan ci weeri December.
So you don't expect me to say yes to him refusing to step down because he was still president. There was no need for him to step down until the 17th of January.
te sentu woon ñu wax ne ko waaw ne fu mu wàcc ndax ba léegi mooy président bi ndax mandat am dafa jeex fukki fan ak juróom-ñaar ci weeri January.
I'm sorry, Ms. Singhateh. It was unlawful.
Ms. Singhateh andul ak loi.
And as it had been said by the Bar Association,
Comme ni ko mbootaay lawyer yi waxee.
and followed by many others after,
Gannaaw bi sax ñu ci bari moom lañ toppa.
Yaya Jammeh caused treason
Yaya Jammeh nag lim defoon mooy suufu nguur.
by refusing the election results
Su fekkee ne dafa bañ élection yi dafa mel ni mu ngi suufu
and
nguur.
refusing to step down.
Mu bañ na du wàcca.
And he caused chaos.
Tax na ba indi woon na fi fitna.
As you would see, mothers, children, etc. had to flee out of this jurisdiction
Ndaxte gisoon nga yaaya ki doomam di daw di génn réew mi.
because of his unlawful declaration.
Ndikte li nga xam ne moom la wax te àndu la loi.
Can we not
accept
confuse
that.
this, please? Can
Mbadu
we not confuse this situation, please?
We are not confusing the situation.
No, you are making your own assertion. You were not there. I was there.
dafa mel
allow
yow
me
sa
to
xalaati
speak.
bopp nga wax mu nekkoo woon fa man maa fa nekkoon.
And I'm not here to hold brief for President Jammeh.
te itamit toogaluma fi président Jammeh di ko layal de.
I am telling you what I saw
maa ngi laa wax li ma gis
and what I experienced.
ak li nga xam ne loolu laa ci daj.
So if I may be allowed to speak, I can tell you.
soo ma mayee nag ma wax kon dinaa la mën a waxal.
I know the whole nation is curious as to what happened during the impasse.
yaakaar naa réew mi yëpp fi mu nekk nii ñu ngi bugg a déglu xam lan moo xew ci jamono impasse bi.
And since I was there,
depuis ma nga xam ne man maa fa nekkoon.
I can tell you about my own lived experience.
kon nag dinaa la mën a waxal nag li nga xam ne loolu laa fa nekkee woon.
Ms. Singhateh,
Please.
the point is, there was an election,
Singhateh wax ji mooy amoon na sànnim karta bu amoon.
there was a winner,
Am na ku gagné.
there was a declared president,
Te waxoon nañ kan moo war a nekk président bi.
Yaya Jammeh conceded.
Yaya Jammeh nangu.
As usual, he flipped,
Comme ni mu ko daan defee rek.
he changed his mind
Dal di wecci xelam.
and said, I own the Gambian people, I cannot let this go.
Ne ma
Did he
ne
say that?
maa moom waa Gambie te duma nangu lii.
ndax dafa wax loolu.
He changed,
Dafa wecceeku.
and he said he was no longer leaving the seat.
Ne moom de du wàccaati toogu ba.
That's not the way I saw it. And I was there.
ko noonu tax man te man maa ngi fa woon.
And I would like to refer you to
point-
section 49 of the
At this
Constitution.
point, I had asked you whether you had attended a meeting after Yaya Jammeh had lost the elections and refused to leave the
Li
jurisdiction.
ma la laaj mooy na teewe woon nga benn meeting gannaaw Yaya Jammeh bu mu wàccee te bañ na du gën a
He
toogu ba.
couldn't have refused to leave the jurisdiction because he was still in office. His mandate expired on the 17th of January. So unless that was when between the 9th of December and the 17th of January was what the impasse was all about. Anything
Singhateh,
after,
it
he
is
would have
clear.
lost his mandate to stay
It
in
is
office.
clear that the president had said then, Yaya Jammeh, he will not leave. So we were not looking at the expiry date of his term, etc. He had already caused the treason by refusing the election results and saying he is not leaving the jurisdiction.
That's your opinion, but that's not true. That's a false assertion.
And I raised the question, which was simple, which referred to, did you attend any meeting after the elections that Yaya Jammeh lost and did not leave? Did you attend a meeting during that period?
I attended a number of meetings up to the time my mandate expired on the 17th of January 2017.
yow naa si meeting yu bëri ba suma mandat jeex fukki fan ak
Thank you.
juróom-ñaar si weeri January 2017.
At this point, I will show you a particular meeting that you attended.
si fii nag danaa la fi won benn meeting boo xam ne ni teewoon nga fa.
Obi-Wan, can you play the video, please? Obi-Wan.
Made it clear that the results are, no matter what we do, it's not going to change the result. But at the same time also, they announced two results. After announcing the first one, then we came back the same day, both of which were also signed by the IEC chairman. And then they came and said, this is what has happened. Now, it is unacceptable. So, What we are asking for is to go back to the electorate under a completely independent electoral commission that would supervise the elections as we used to do before without having any problem, and allow every Gambian to vote. But it is abnormal that you set up a time frame. In any country, anywhere in the world, I've been watching elections. If people are already at the polling station, you are allowed them to vote. So the Gambian, I must accept what all votes.
We met with the Attorney General, and we're very proud of her. She's one of the several women we met when we went to Burundi. It was also a woman that was Attorney General of Burundi. And she received us very well. And lucky enough for us, in the African Bar Association, our Vice President of West Africa is a woman.
Can you stop this video?
In the country and in the cabinet, there cannot be any problem. Because that's what's happening in the press, and I asked the Attorney General.
Obi-Wan, can you stop the video? Sorry, Mr. Chair. It seems like there was a mix-up with the videos that were played. However, the video that was played showed Yaya Jammeh giving an excuse.
Dafa melni dafa am jaxaso bu am ci video yi ñu doon teg waaye ba léegi ci video bi Yaya Jammeh joxe na fa kàddu
as to how he would not accept the election results.
di wone moom naka la sukkandiku ba bañ li nga xam ne moo faaxee ko ci élection yooyu muy sànni carte yooyu.
It is clear that he caused treason.
Reer na nañ ne nag moom daf doon suufu réew nguur gi.
And should not have been giving such statements. And should have been advised by the Attorney General that he cannot be making such declarations. Okay, I understand they have the right video now. Obi-Wan, may it be played, please.
And this is why I call you religious leaders, because people listen to you more than they listen to politicians. All I want us to do together is to reunite the country, reconcile and forget what has been said about us, what they have done to us and other people. All what I want is reconciliation so that the country continues.
The country, in spite of its geographical location in a very volatile region that is prone to all forms of instability, has always been...
Obi-Wan, you may turn off the video. Ms. Singhateh, do you remember this meeting being held?
Singhateh fatale kunga meeting bi.
Yes, with the religious leaders, yes.
Wow, at Khalifa Dine, wow.
Can you tell us what was the intention of the meeting?
I heard it the same way everybody else did, for reconciliation. For united the country.
Is that because that's the time Yaya Jammeh had decided he will not leave the presidency?
He did not tell me that he was not going to leave the presidency.
Well, in the essence of this meeting, He had indicated that he shall not be leaving the presidency.
Meeting bi na feñal na fa ne mom day du bayyi togu president bobu.
And he wanted the Gambian people to reconcile and forget about everything they had said about them.
Te dafa wax ne dafa bëgg Gambia doonat ben fatte lepp lo xamne wax nañ ko ci seen affaire.
Seeming to mean that if we allowed him to stay, he would change his ways.
Lim doon nuru dal moy suñ ko bayyi won bem togaat na doon wécci doxalin.
As the Attorney General, you should have advised him not to even have such a meeting.
Attorney General bi de yow la won te dang ko no digal nak ne meeting bu mel nonu sax warut ko wona am.
In a meeting where he's trying to convince the Gambian people to allow him to stay.
Ci meeting bo xamne daf doon bëgga dugal ci xeli wa Gambia ne dal nañ ko bayyi pour mu togaat.
He should have been advised to accept the results.
And leave
the seat peacefully when the time came. I shall be moving to the next issue, which is how the African Bar Association was encouraged to come and make statements on the election and meet with Jammeh. At this point, I will not ask the OB van to play the video because some of it was shown earlier on. Is it correct to say that you accompanied this said African Bar Association to meet the president?
No, I did not accompany them.
However, they met you at State House.
Actually, they came to see me at my office. And introduced themselves. They said that they were concerned about what was going on in the Gambia. That they had an appointment to see the president. That it wasn't right for them to come to meet the president without seeing me as their colleague-in-law. So that's how I met them. And later on, I was invited to a meeting at OP.
On a meeting to office of the president OP.
And they were there as well.
Do you remember some of the statements they made on that day?
Vaguely.
But it seems like this time it was okay for non-nationals, non-Gambians to come in and talk about what is happening in our jurisdiction.
It was never not okay for non-Gambians to come and talk about what's happening in our jurisdiction. What I had said earlier, which you deliberately misconstrued, was the fact that if we had a problem in the House, and the House, I mean the Gambia, it's very strange that outsiders would tell us about it, which I'm not accusing them of. But it was in the context of the political agreement. The political agreement we used to have, the meeting we used to have, was very interactive. So it was very friendly. So it wasn't as if I was accusing them.
Ms. Singhateh,
but I found it very strange that they would tell us about it whilst you all kept mute. That was the point I was trying to drive home. Not because they are foreigners, they said anything, but because my own compatriots kept mute about it. That was the point I was driving home at Ms. Dandinyai.
It's Mrs. Jabi now.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Jabi.
Thank you. Ms. Singhateh, to let you know, the way you had said it, I did not misconstrue it. Okay? The point is, we know Yahya Jammeh and his government frowned on non-nationals raising issues that affected the country. However, in this particular instant, because it was a comment that was buttering him up and in his favor, he allowed it to be televised.
It should
not have been allowed at that time when this country was in a state of confusion for foreigners to come and make pronouncements about our elections that were very clear. Simply stated, that was the issue. At this point, it would just be clear to state that you were one of the longest serving attorney generals, putting both your terms together.
I don't think so. I disagree, but I'm sure you must have had your reason for saying that.
I will leave the commission to see the records on that. However, during your tenure, the Gambia was declared an Islamic state. The Gambia withdrew from the ICC. In December 2014, when there was the failed coup, many persons were arrested, including families of alleged coupists. During the term when you were in tenure, there were loads of arrest, detention, which were all unlawful. There were many laws that were kind of incorporated. There were laws that were passed, especially the LGBT rights. LGBT. It affected their rights, and a law was even enacted, and they were prosecuted. Some were prosecuted, and it imposed capital offense. The record of the country under human rights was very poorly. The UN special rapporteurs will refuse access to prisons, etc. We send reports that not really table out the violations in the jurisdiction. And it even got to a point we even stopped sending reports. As the Minister of Justice, it was your responsibility to advise, to ensure that none of these violations kept occurring in this country, especially those that affected the women. Thank you very much, Ms. Singhateh. At this point, I have no more questions.
I would like to respond.
You can do that in your closing remarks.
No, I would like to respond, Mr. Chair, because there were many issues raised here by council, and I just cannot, it cannot be swept under the rug under general remarks. I would like to be given an opportunity to respond to each and every false allegation made here.
Well, you can respond to questions that she's raised.
Yes.
And the others are reserved for your closing remarks.
Yes, let me respond to the question.
Please proceed to
Thank you.
the questions.
Thank you. With regards to the failed coup, the coup was an attempted coup to overturn a legitimately installed government, which is treasonous. In any jurisdiction that you go to, coups are taken very seriously. I'm going to stop there at that.
dama fay taxaw nag foofu.
With regards to laws passed,
bu ñëwee ci loi yi nga xam ne moom lañ taxawal.
I have never passed any law that violated any person's rights.
mosuma taxawal benn loi boo xam ne ni nag dal dina xëtt yelleefi doomu aadama.
The LGBTQ acts that you refer to,
ci tur boobu nga xam ne moom la mooy wax noonu.
it was an amendment to an already existing act that had been enacted since 2005.
mu ngi doon dox nag ci loi boo xam ne wëlbati nañ ko depuis atum 2005.
And what I sought to amend was
li nga xam ne moom laa xenjoon pour wëlbati mooy.
to protect people from being infected with HIV/AIDS
mooy pour nag aar nit ñi balaa ñu nay wàll jàngoro HIV/AIDS.
through an LGBT relationship.
ci jaarale ko nag ci jokko LGBT relationship.
The language of the law is there.
li nga xam ne mooy kàddu loi bi mu ngi fa.
Feel free to read it out for the whole world to hear.
bu la neexee na nga jàng ko àdduna yëpp dégg ko.
But my responsibility at the time
waaye nag li doon suma warugal ci waxtu boobu.
was to protect every citizen in this country.
moo nekkoon pour aar mboolem doomi réew mi fi nekkee ci réew mi fi.
There was already law in the books that was prohibiting LGBTQ relationship.
am na loi boo xam ne nag mu ngi doon dàq nag mbir boobu.
That was in place since 2005.
nga xam ne ñu ngi ko teeloon depuis 2005.
So I did not pass that law.
kon nag loi boobu duutoon man maa ko taxawal.
The only amendment I made which carried a capital offense
li nga xam ne ni nag mooy wëlbati bi ñu ci def soppali bi ñu ci def rek moo nekkoon ne pour taxawal nag li nga xam ne mooy atte ba.
was the deliberate infection of HIV/AIDS through a homosexual relationship.
mooy nag li nga xam ne ni mooy wàllu nit ki jàngoro HIV/AIDS ci anam goo xam ne mooy diggante ñaari góor yu sëy.
Every other law I have passed
tey ko fekk ci ay yeneen loi yi nga xam ne ni
have
tegal
been
naa ko.
progressive,
mu ngi doon dox am na jëm kanam.
have been protective,
te tamit doon na aar nit ñi.
have been in the best interest of the people of the Gambia.
te tamit doon na li nga xam ne ni mooy soxal nit ñi dëkkee ci réewi Gambia.
And the fact that you would forget about all those laws and highlight one law,
te tamit nga gis ne da ngay fàtte yu yëpp dal di indi na benn loi rek.
which was an amendment to a 2005 act,
boo xam ne ni nag si soppali yoo xam ne am na si atum 2005.
means your intentions are not genuine.
moo mel ni sa jubluwaay bi de nekkul loo xam ne ni wér na.
And another thing,
ak beneen bi mooy.
it is important to remember
baax na nag pour ñu fàttali.
my responsibility as Attorney General
ne suma warugal ni may ministre bi saytoon
was
wàlli loi bi.
effectively and efficiently executed to the best of my ability.
moom nag doxaloon nañ ko ni mu waree ni mu wéree ci li nga xam ne ni moo gàccoo ci suma
I
man-man.
advised based on the law as I saw it.
dama daan yedde ci anam gi nga xam ne noonu laa ko gisee ci loi bi.
Yes, the rest I would state in my closing statement.
li des nag danaa ko indi nag ci suma jamono bi may joxe nag suma.
But one thing I would add,
lenn nag naa ko ci yokk.
all the statements here and the putting it to you here were all based on hearsay.
li nga xam ne mooy kàddu yi yëpp ngay wax ne dañ ko teg fii ak leneen yëpp duñ ko li rek ci ay sottandeku yaay nopp.
Other than the issue of the Islamic State,
su mooyee nag mbiri Islamic State bi.
there's nothing you can put your finger on that show that I deliberately acted in contravention to international human rights law.
mu dara loo mën a yëkkati sa loxo fii ne def naa ko ci loo xam ne nii dal dina féewaloo ak lu jëm ci wàllu yelleefi doomu aadama yi ci àdduna bi.
Or the Constitution of the Gambia,
wala luwaay réewi Gambia bi.
which is the foundation upon which all of us stand.
nga xam ne ni nag mooy sosuteeg ñun ñëpp fi ñu taxaw.
Yes.
jërëjëf.
Commissioners, if you have any questions, please indicate. Imam Java, you have the floor, please.
Witness. Imam Jallo mo la laaj mu ne seede bi.
I want you to clear a few points for me here.
Dafa am yu ma bëgg na nga leeralal ma ko fii.
When the election results were announced,
biñ yébaane li nga xam ne moo faxe ko ci sànni carte boobu am.
everybody saw clearly that Yaya Jammeh had lost.
Leeroon na ñëpp nañ ne Yaya Jammeh daadu na.
The fact that they said there are some mistakes in the counting and still upheld that he actually had lost the elections.
Dëgg la sax feeñaloon nañ ne amoon na ay njuumte yu amoon ci compte bi waaye terewut tax ba tey daanu woon na.
Do you think it was right for him to still say that he is not moving out of his seat?
Foog nga ne ndax jaadu woon na pour mu wax nag ne moom day du wàcce toogoom bi.
That's question number one.
Benn laajte bi mooy boobu.
Should I answer or you want to ask all the questions?
No, take this question first. I want to take them serious.
Yes. Let me answer?
Yeah, please.
Yes. Thank you so much for asking that question. To answer directly, no, I don't think it was fair for him to say he was not going to step down. But you also have to look at the context, Imam. When the declaration of election loss was announced, he conceded. In fact, we were all preparing for the transition process. When IEC declared another set of results that was conflicted to the first set of results, it triggered the impasse. Under any laws, any electoral laws, once the electoral administration issues two conflicted results, they have tainted the election results. So the president was in his right to protest. How we went about it was wrong. And I agree with you to that extent. But to be quite clear, our roles as cabinet and my role as Minister of Justice provided him with the information as to the state of affairs, as to what was right and what was wrong. So we did not renege on our responsibilities to advise and to be of service to the people and the country. Thank you.
You talked about human rights. And you gave the comparison at forums in the international world. We could have done better. I want you to clarify for this commission why you choose that word instead of giving us exactly aspects that affect the Gambian people. Because the answer is not we could have done better. My opinion.
Thank you very much. What I had stated was that no country has a perfect human rights record. But every state aspires to live up to expectation. For the state of the Gambia, we were doing very poorly in freedom of expressions. We were doing very poorly in unlawful detentions. And I am the first to admit that. And I know I have raised that a number of times. But human rights is not just about freedom of speech and freedom of movement. Human rights is also the protection of rights of women and children. Human rights is also to protect the promotion of right to health and education. And comparatively, Gambia was doing well compared to other countries in that aspect. With regards to provision of educational facilities, with regards to ensuring that girls had equal rights to access education as boys, With regards to reduction of maternal mortality rates.
bu ñëwee tamit ci wàlli jigéen ñi des ci wàlli amam doom ak seen doom yi daanu ci mbootu.
With regards to reduction of infant mortality rates.
ak tamit lu jëm ci wàlli buñ wàññi tamit li nga xam ne mooy xale yi daanu ci mbootu.
This all shows the effort that government was doing in terms of health.
lii yëpp nag nguur gi mu ngi ko doon def ci buñ ko méngalee ak wàlli wér-gu-yaram.
And protection of the rights to the life to those children who could have lost their life but didn't.
tey tamit ak li nga xam ne mooy kaaraange jëm ci dundini xale yooyu nga xam ne ni mënoon nañoo daanu ci mbootu te daanu wuñ ci.
And those women who could have lost their life in childbirth and didn't because of the effort that government had made.
ak jigéen ñooñu nga xam ne ni mënoon nañoo des ci amam doom te desuñ ci yëpp nag mu ngi dëppoog jéego yi nga xam ne ni nguur gi def nañ ko.
So that's why when we talk about human rights,
loolu moo tax bu ñuy wax mbiru human rights.
it's a holistic setup.
nekk na nag taxawaay boo xam ne ni bu xóot la.
It's not just one aspect of rights.
rek benn wàll rek ci wàllu yelleef.
I'm also the first to accept that.
man maay njëlbéen tamit pour nangu loolu.
All rights are interlinked.
yelleef yëpp dañ leen jokkale.
Just because we're doing well in health and education doesn't mean that we should fail in freedom of expression and freedom of movement.
noonu lañ doon defee nag lu wér ci wàllu wi garab ak njàng mi loolu rek warta tax rek ñu bàyyi càggante ko ci yeneen buntu yi.
That's why I said we could have done better.
loolu moo tax ma ne mënoon nañoo def lu gën a yéwén loolu.
We still can do better.
tey ba tey mën nañoo def lu gën a yéwén.
No person, no country is perfect.
amul benn réew amul benn doomu aadama boo xam ne nii dal dina mot sikk.
But we aspire to do better in life as human beings, as people, as a nation.
waaye yéen nañ nag pour def lu gën a yéwén ni comme ay doomu aadama lañ tey tamit ñu ngeen liggéey nekk ci benn place.
Thank you.
jërëjëf.
For the first time, I'm hearing you say that, admitting that actually there were some for the first time, since in the morning, I'm hearing you say now that you admit that actually there were some human rights violations.
Maybe it's the way you asked it.
Yeah, that's right. No.
It's the way you asked it. That's why I was able to provide you a direct answer.
Can you give me 3 human rights violations that you are aware of that occurred in this country which adversely affected Gambians?
I can give you an answer as I know now, but I did not know at the time. And that is relating to unlawful detentions. Yes.
So in effect, what you are telling us is that you are not only telling us things that you know, and there is one quotation here which you said, I don't overlook on the shoulders of my employees, but as the person directly responsible for supervision of all staff matters, isn't it your right to look over the shoulders of your staff and over their shoulders to ensure that justice is done?
ndax nag du woon xool waxoon nga fi ne yow nekkuloon da ngay topp rek gannaaw yi ñi nga xam ne ñooy sa ay liggéeyandoor.
Because the impression it gave me is that you didn't know what they were doing.
waaye nag fooguloo ne sa warugal la tamit nga topp ba xam li nga xam ne ñi sa ron yëpp loolu lañ doon def parce que li ma nuru mooy ne yow xamuloo woon ñooñu li nga xam ne moom lañ doon doxal.
That's a very good question, but it's not humanly possible.
loolu nag laajte bu baax la waaye nag du loo xam ne ni mën a teg doomu aadama la.
In a ministry that has over 100 staff,
ci buntu liggéeykaay boo xam ne dem ci téeméeri nit ñoo fay liggéey.
and over 7 departments,
ak lu dem ci juróom-ñaari buntu liggéeykaay.
I cannot be looking over the shoulder of every department head.
mënuma nekk na di seet mbagg ñëpp ñi nga xam ne ñoo fay liggéey wala jiite ko.
I trust their competence and their qualification for holding that position.
wóolu woon naa nag seen màcc ak seen taxawaayi liggéey.
I am asking for, you said you to overlook on the shoulders of your staff, whether there are a million of them, you have sources through which you could pass to ensure that you know what people are doing, particularly if they are violating the rights of human beings in your country.
Aka nu molo ma bari waron nga am taxawaay yoo xam ne di nga ko mën a jël pour seet ndax ñooñu ñu ngay yàq yelleefi doomu aadama fii ci suñu réew mi.
I think the point that has to be made clear here, Imam, is the fact that violations of human rights were not done directly by staff in my office. That those rights with regards to detention and arrest, that's under the purview of Ministry of Interior.
te yelleef yooyu nag duutoon na yëpp nag daal ci suma ron ministry la nekkoon. jàpp yeeg yooyu nag mu ngi nekkoon ci ron ministry bi saytu wàllu doxalin biir réew mi.
So it would not be fair to say that my staff or me or anybody in the Ministry of Justice violated human rights. Nobody did that, and I can assure you.
du daal na pour ne nag loolu yelleef yooyu ni ñu ko xatee ci suma ron la woon rek loolu moom mën naa la koo gaaral.
I am certainly not saying that your ministry is responsible or you are responsible. I'm saying your role as Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And that is what I am questioning.
Thank you. May I respond?
Yeah.
jërëjëf ndax mën naa laa tontu léegi.
The role as Attorney General,
li nekkoon warugal li Attorney General,
as provided for in the Constitution of the Gambia,
comme ni nga xam ne noonu lañ ko gaarale ci luwaay réewi Gambia,
is to serve as principal legal advisor.
moo nekkoon nag mu nekk ki nga xam ne nii mooy gën ajo yelleef yi ci Gambia.
It definitely does not mean only legal advisor.
tey tamit nag minutoon rek legal advisor.
And when it came to my responsibilities,
te bi mu ñëwee nag ci li nga xam ne nii mooy sumay warugal,
God knows I did it to the best of my ability.
yàlla xam na ne def naa ko ci li nga xam ne loolu laa ca suma kàttan fu mu toll.
My last question is, it goes back to the other question I asked. Can you tell this commission 3 violations that adversely affected Gambians that you can tell us?
laajte bu mujj bi de mooy dama delluwaat la ma laajte woon rek ndax mun nga maa konteel ñetti mbir yoo xam ne yow gis nga ne loolu dafa doon yàq yelleefi doomu aadama ci réew mi fii.
At the top of my head, I can only think of unlawful detention.
ci suma bopp daal li ma ci mën a fàttali ko rek mooy te jàpp nit te dëppwut ak yoon.
Thank you.
Imam C, you have the floor.
Madam Fadimata.
Yes, sir.
Witness. What doubts me is
Yaya Jammeh dafay dem ba wax mbir.
Yaya Jammeh will just agree to something, say something.
Yéen ay lawyer ngeen moom kamul yëfi lawyer.
You people were lawyers and he didn't know anything about the law.
Yéen kam ngeen atte lawyer, kam ngeen buntu lawyer, am ngeen xam-xam.
You know all the aspect of law.
Moom mu jël lu ko nekk.
He will just decide anything that pleases him
mu teg leen ko.
and put it on you.
Ngeen def ko.
And you did it.
Ngeen wax ne loi la.
And you said it is a law.
Te moom def doon mbubboo loi waaye degré rek la doon atte.
And he always lean on the laws, but he is always going by the degrees.
Loolu man jaakal na ma naka ngeen ko doon gisee ak naka ngeen ko doon nangoo.
I doubt that doubts me how you people accepted that one.
Ñaareel bi lépp li nga xamante ne lii mos nga ko wax sa kaddu te jaaru ci loi.
Secondly, all that's what you said, and that was not on law.
Te mu lor ci doomi Adama.
And he has violated people's right.
Nga jégulu ko.
You have to seek for apology for
du yow rek nag
forgiveness on that. It's not only you.
Thank you very much.
Jërëjëf Imam.
I want to state for the record
dama bëgg a leeral ci record bi nii.
that when I give my advice,
man saay bu ma joxe yeddee nag su ma ko yeddee ba pare.
It's usually done in accordance with the law.
Dafay nekk loo xam ne dañ koy jaarale ci yoon.
So if it's with regards to, for example, prosecution,
bu fekkee nag ne ñu ko tëralee ci mbiri àtte.
The relevant law is quoted.
Li nga xam ne ni mooy loi ba nam sisi danañ ko seet.
And the decision to prosecute would commence.
Tey tamit dogal bi ñu jël nag pour ñu àtte danañ ko commencé.
I personally,
man ci suma jëmmi bopp.
I have not done anything that has hurt anybody.
Mosuma def dara loo xam ne ni daal dina xoñoñal nit.
Or violated anybody's rights.
Wala xëtt yelleefi benn doomu aadama.
That is not who I am as a person.
Du loo xam ne ni man naa ko doonaa ko man ci suma bopp.
And even all those who are speaking, including counsel, would not say that this is what I did.
Ak mboolem ñuy wax ni boole si na di counsel amul kenn ku ci may wax ne lii laa def.
To hurt somebody.
Pour nag xoñoñal nit wala toroxal tooñ nit.
To detain somebody.
Pour teg nit benn place.
or to do anything that would violate their rights.
That's not
the kind of person I am. That was not the kind of minister I was. That's one. With regards to laws, between 2013 and 2017,
2013 and 2017,
every law that I passed was one way or the other beneficial to the people of the country. There was no law that I moved before Parliament that violated the rights of anybody. In my opinion, I'm the kind of person, if I cannot build and keep the peace, I will not destroy. And nobody can stand here and say I destroyed their lives. Or I did something to hurt them. There usually have been many false allegations made against me in public and in social media, which God knows are not true. But I would not go out and start defending myself on some trivial issues. Because no matter how long it takes, I know I will be vindicated. And I'm going to rest on that. And my conscience is clear. And my relationship with my Creator is clear. When I go to bed, I sleep at night. Because I know my hands are not tainted, they are not stained. And that's the truth.
Commissioner Jones, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Singhateh, for your testimony. My first question would focus on the issue of the Islamic State. I read through your response to Jammeh, dated the 8th of February 2016. And one of your recommendations was to maintain the formal name of the Republic, as it had legal implications. I want to ask a question regarding this recommendation that you made. Was this recommendation adhered to? As in, were letters or correspondence that emanated from the officers or government institutions, including your ministry, did they maintain the name as the Republic of the Gambia? Or was it changed to Islamic Republic of the Gambia?
My ministry maintained the name Republic of the Gambia.
Ministry continue to the Republic of the Gambia.
Because I know the legal implication. But others did not. And from the opinion I read, I think I read the second one, that the recommendation I made to the executive was rejected.
Were you aware that other government institutions and ministries were not adhering to this recommendation?
Yes, I was aware with regards to foreign affairs.
What about the Office of the President, since you received a lot of correspondences from them?
I guess so, but the thing is sometimes the letterheads are conflicting. Sometimes it would be Republic of the Gambia, others it would be Islamic Republic.
li nga xam ne moom lañ di def nag ci boppi leetar bi léegoo-léegi de muy féewaloo de léegoo-léegi nga gis fa Republic of the Gambia léegoo gis Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
It always depends on, I think, the author of the letter that comes from OP.
mu ngi des rek nag ci ki nga xam ne ni moo bind leetar boobu jóge ko ci Office of the President.
Are you also aware that there was a directive that all women should cover their heads when going to, I think it was government institutions, I can't remember what exactly it was, but there was a directive that all women should cover their head.
Yes, I was aware.
Taking into consideration that both of these directives are illegal, I think you would agree with me on that. Did you further make any recommendation to the president on the illegality of these directives?
I
saw it as an option with regards to covering our heads because I didn't enforce it in my ministry.
Man nak forcé wu mako nak ci suma ministère dama ko japp rek ne ke tan sa bula neex la rek ku la neex kum neex nga musuru kum neex nga bay.
Because with regards to covering your head, it's a matter of tradition. You choose to or you don't choose to.
Beyond just tradition, it's also religious, because I'm a Christian, so I would take offense if someone asked me to cover my head.
But you didn't have to. There were some Christians in my office who didn't.
I definitely did not, but that's not the issue. We're talking about an entire nation, about 2 million people at a time. And you have repeatedly told us about your role, which included being the chief legal advisor to the president. You've also told us that your opinions were based on law. And I would think that it goes against the law as far as it concerns majority of Gambians, because this was not a decision that was made by the people of the Gambia. It was one individual who decided to call the Gambia an Islamic Republic of the Gambia. In response to your question to Imam Jallo concerning rights violations that you're aware of, you mentioned unlawful detention and said you only just found out about it. Can you please tell the Commission how you came to know about these unlawful detentions?
I cannot recall at the top of my head. I just know about it.
If you know about it, I'm sure you know about some instances or individuals. Can you speak to that then?
I cannot at the top of my head speak to that.
Okay. Now in totality, we're looking at your, again, taking into cognizance your response to Imam Jallo on the issue of the election. And that of the issue of the Islamic State. As chief legal advisor to the president or to the government, do you still uphold your conviction that you served your country to the best of your ability?
Of course, definitely, absolutely.
Wow.
Thank you.
And I was honored to have served my country. And I was honored to have provided services that was beneficial to my country. And I believe that every person should sacrifice one way or the other to be of service to their country. Being a public service or be public servant is a thankless job. Nobody would get to thank you. In spite of all your achievements and all the benefits that you have provided for your country and your somebody will always find something small to use against you. So I know that I have served my country. And I know that I have done the best I could possibly can as humanly possible as possible. That's okay for me. And I'm okay with it. Whether others see it or not, that's okay. I am satisfied with the work I have done.
Very well said. That being said, however, given the fact that the president made some pronouncements or directives that affected the sovereign will of the people of the Gambia that were illegal.
President bi def na ay dogal yoo xam ne laal na waa réewi Gambia te àndul ak luwa.
I respect your stance and the position you've presented to the Commission, that all your decisions were based on law.
Fonka naa sa taxawaay nag li nga xam ne moom nga fi ci commission bi ne yow lépp loo dogal rek danga ko wéer ci luwa.
You had the option to further send recommendations or to resign like others have when those recommendations were not adhered to.
Yow nag mënoon ngaa tànn pour ndax ñu nangu li nga xam ne mooy dogal yi nga ndigal yi nga joxe wala nga bàyyi liggéey bi comme que li nga digle duñ koy def.
Could you please tell the Commission why you chose to continue working even though your recommendations were not adhered to?
Mën ngaa wax commission bi tax nga continuer di liggéey nag comme que li nga leen digal duñ koy def.
I will not sit here to tell you that my work was undemanding.
My
work was not a 9-to-5 job. My work was not a 9 to. It wasn't. I did not work between 9 and 5 o'clock. My work was 24/7. And it was demanding and it was intense. But if I were to resign, it would mean that I was giving up. It would mean that I was throwing in the towel. And it would mean that I was admitting defeat. Because every day you go to work, or every day I go to work, I find a way to make the lives of the people I serve better. If I fail in one bit, I will endeavor to succeed in another. It's just like a mother or a father of a home. When there's a problem, they just don't pack their bags and leave the family. Face your difficulties and you find ways of solving the problem. I knew the person I was working with. I knew how stubborn he could be. But I also know that there were instances where I was able to get him to comply with my advice. And in many of those instances, I have saved a number of people. And I have fixed a number of problems. But those are the things that would never come to light. Because it affects the lives and properties of people who prefer privacy. Unfortunately, when something goes wrong, you only hear about the bad things. You never hear about the good things that people do. It's only when they die that people will talk about all the good things they did. That's why I say that public service is a thankless job. You do your best because of the service you render. Not because of the thank you would get. Because if you want to wait for a thank you, you will never get it. That's all.
Thank you. Before giving Commissioner Carr the floor, just want you to clarify one point for me. It's not quite clear to me. on the Islamic Republic issue.
Bala ma jox commissioner ka kaddu gi dafa am fuma bëgg nga leeralal ma rek lo aju ci mbiri ne réew mi ñu jox ko réewi islam.
I think if I heard you correctly, one of the recommendations in your note to the President's office
su fekkee dégg naa la bu baax de yenn yi nga xam ne digal nga ko président bi
was to maintain the name of the country, Republic of the Gambia.
mooy ne ni xamee woon réewi Gambia ne République bu Gambia nañ téye waat tur boobu na meloon.
While giving it attributes of an Islamic state, I'm a bit confused about the two coexisting.
lu tax ñuy
You
xalaat
can just clarify the point.
war a nekk réewi islam nga leeralal ñu foofu.
I don't think I understand the question. You say, why wasn't it? I don't understand the question.
One of the recommendations you referred to
Yes.
was to maintain the name Republic of the Gambia.
Yes.
And then I think subsequently you mentioned retaining or creating the attributes of an Islamic state. It's that contradiction that keep the name, don't call it Islamic or Republic of the Gambia, but have institutions and laws and other things that attributes of Islamic State. Do you get it?
I don't think that's what I said.
Okay,
Unless,
then I misunderstood you.
Yeah,
That's why I wanted you
unless
to clarify
council
the
can
point.
share the letter again, because I think I remember stating that, because there was already a proclamation that the country would be an Islamic state. All of a sudden, Gambia was being referred to as Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
nekkul ne loolu laa wax de kana kañ council indiwaat seeta wala ñu leetar bi rek ndax am na yébaane boo xam ne defoon nañ ko ne Gambia daal mu Islamic Republic la waaye ñu commencé di ko ooyee.
My recommendation was, can we keep Gambia the way as it is, Republic of the Gambia?
Man suma tontu moo nekkoon suma li ma ràññeewoon moo nekkoon ndax mënuñoo continuer di oo Gambia tur bi ñu ko xamee Republic of the Gambia.
That we have to go through a process, a whole list of process before we can be an Islamic state.
ne dañ war a jaar ci ay yoon yu bari balaa ñooy àgg nag ci Islamic Republic bu state.
And that includes going through a referendum.
loolu nag bokk na ci pour dem ci benn référendum.
I think that was the point I was trying to make.
yaakaar naa loolu moo nekkoon point bi nga xam ne moom laa bëggoon a def.
And for me personally,
tamit man ci suma bopp rek.
I believe
yaakaar naa ne tamit ne.
that by the time we actually say we're going to go through the process of Islamization of the republic,
jamono bi nga xam ne ñu ngi jël ci dem ci saawo si nga xam ne mooy wéral di réew mi def ko réewi islam.
before we get to a referendum,
balaa ñooy àgg nag ci référendum.
this issue would have been resolved, I believe.
te lii mënoon nañ koy saafara ci li ma yaakaar.
But your advice certainly wasn't taken.
It wasn't.
And
he did inform. I was at the United Nations at that time. We received his letter informing that the name of the Gambia had changed to the Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
Linko digal defut ko de ndax man jamono jooju maa ngi liggéey United Nations jotoon nañ leetar bu wone ne soppali nañ tur bi tuddee ko Islamic Republic bu Gambia.
That's why I said that I know Foreign Affairs changed the names.
moo tax li ma wax ne Foreign Affairs ñoom ci wecci woon nañ tur bi.
I met Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, a few days after that in Makkah, and he held my hand for almost 5-10 minutes. And when I returned to New York, he said to me, "Your brother held your hand because you are now Islamic Republic of the Gambia." I told him, no, that was not it. But Commissioner Kai, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Singhateh, for your testimony before this commission.
Ms. Singhateh, commission.
First question I want to ask you is, to follow up to Imam Jallo's question. Because Imam asked you to name 3 human rights violations you were aware of. And you mentioned that you only knew about illegal detention. Looking back.
nga ne day liñ ci fàttale ko mooy daal ñu ñoo téye teg leen benn place sa jaarul ak yoon.
Would it be correct to say you are in touch with the reality on the ground?
Duñ wax ne ndax yow yaa ngi doon jokkoo ak li nga xam ne moo daan xew jamono boobu.
Firstly, let me set the record straight. I did not say I only knew. I said the only thing I can think of at the top of my head. And as your second question, I believe is a rhetorical question because you don't expect me to give you an answer for that.
So, would you be aware of other human rights violations then?
I said at the top of my head, the only thing I can think of at the top of my head was illegal detention.
Were
you reading media reports about human rights issues in the Gambia?
Media reports such as?
The local newspapers?
I was reading the local newspapers.
So you would be aware of those human rights violations that were reported in those papers?
Like illegal detention.
Thank you. And did you do anything about those issues?
Yes.
Wow.
Can you tell this commission?
I talked to my colleague, the Minister of Interior, and informed them that whatever they do, they should do so according to law.
At
your own ministry, what did you do?
I was not responsible for detention, so the best thing I could do, the only thing I could do was provide advice.
But
I believe you must have had knowledge of these other issues as you've indicated in your reply.
I think I've already answered your question.
Anyway, my final question would be, since you mentioned, even in your answer to some of the questions Commissioner Jones asked and some of the other commissioners, that you did your best, but sometimes you fell short. Is there anything you would like to ask for forgiveness from the Gambian people?
No.
Did it.
Thank you.
Please proceed to make your final remarks.
I think I'll hold my peace. I am not going to say anything else.
Thank you very much indeed, coming to testify before the commission. Council, you have some submissions to
yes, Mr. Chair.
Exhibits.
The letters and the opinion that were indicated before the commission, I would like to apply to tender them. I will do the dates and everything later, but to give you the number, it will be 221. And then from A, B, C to D.
Anything else? That's it?
That's all.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much indeed, and we will resume our public hearings on Monday, 10 o'clock sharp. Thank you all very much.
Am I excused? Can I go?
The meeting is ended. Yes, you are. But
no, I just want to know whether I have to come back again or are you done with me?
If we do, we will get in touch with you.
No,
we can't tell now.
No, I heard you said we will resume proceedings
no,
again.
No, not you, not you. I meant I'm just announcing that this ends our activities for today. And no, with you, we are finished. When we need you, we'll bring you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Singhateh. Meeting is adjourned again.
بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسألونك عن الأنفال قل الأنفال لله والرسول فاتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم وأطيعوا الله ورسوله إن كنتم مؤمنين. إنما المؤمنون الذين إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون.